Emily. Emily Turnbull, thank you so much. And I just, Energise with Emily just kind of seems to float off the tongue. And every time we've written it everywhere on the website, it just is Energise with Emily. I mean, it's just the obvious thing to do.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really delighted to be here.
So obviously what we want to hear, the other thing is, I've got my energy. I'm hoping that I'm giving out strong energy vibes by wearing vibrant orange.
Radiating energy.
Because actually, I suppose a lot of all those sorts of things make a difference, don't they? If you're dressing grey and dowdily as opposed to trendy grey, things like that can bring your mood down. But I'm sure that we're going to cover that sort of thing later. But yeah, today I'm really looking forward to, looking at how we can energize ourselves. And I think for a lot of people, it's not just about, and it's re-energizing. Even the people that are the most energetic at the moment, we're now in the long haul. Hopefully we can all see a bit of the light coming. But yes, I think it's been hard. And as you and I spoke about just very briefly the other day, I think you were saying it's not just physically, it's the emotional and what was it, the emotional and the mental
absolutely
energy that's hard at the moment.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think for a lot of people, we're finding actually our lives are less busy, they're less frenetic, we're not doing as much running around, we haven't really got social lives, but we're finding ourselves feeling, as exhausted, if not more exhausted than, when life is really, really busy. And it's because I think, it's this, that our mental energy and our emotional energy is, that's what's really being challenged at the moment throughout this whole pandemic. And it's, COVID and it just the amount of change and the, the way we're having to adapt our lives, just simple things like thinking about where am I going to get my food from, right? We think back to what it was like in April. Am I going to be able to buy bread? Where am I going to get milk from? Having to queue for the supermarket, that kind of stuff, it's really, really, it takes a huge amount of energy to adapt to that mental energy and emotional energy. And so whilst we might find ourselves doing less running around, I know for myself, I'm a mum with 2 boys. And so I'm, obviously having to homeschool them, but I'm not doing the running around, doing the school run. I'm not taking them to after school clubs. So in a way, my life is sort of, physically less busy, but I certainly find myself really quite mentally and sometimes emotionally really, almost exhausted. There are days where it's really, really tough. And so I think it's really important to kind of acknowledge that energy is more than just about your body and whether you can run 2 miles. It's much more than that. But the really nice thing is that the choices you make about your lifestyle, they have, the benefits are not just limited. The choices you make to your lifestyle will have real benefits to your physical energy, your emotional energy, and your mental energy. So.
And hopefully you're going to tell us what the answers are to all of those and make us hugely. Before we go into sort of looking at the practical things and understanding how we're feeling, it'd be really interesting to hear your, let me use the word backstory. I don't think I've ever used that word before, but it is always interesting, and I always like to hear from our experts to understand where they came from and why they are where they are, and also for people to understand your credentials, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background, I actually started out my working life as a lawyer and spent close to 16 years working as a solicitor. I knew it was never my calling. I always felt like it was, not really what I was meant to do, but I didn't really know what else it was. And I think also the timing wasn't right. But I've always been really interested. I've always been very interested in nutrition. I've been a lifelong exerciser, fitness bunny, started going to the gym when I was 16, and that has always been, exercise and fitness has always been a really big part of my life. And it's always been something that has helped me through really stressful periods, particularly when I was working in big law firms and dealing with the stress that comes with that. Exercise was such an important part of my way of coping with those stresses. But it was really when I kind of got into my 30s, and sort of my interest in nutrition started to change a little bit, because I started to realize actually what I'm eating is not just, it doesn't just affect the way I look. I was quite body conscious when I was in my 20s. But then I kind of started to realize actually it's, what I eat and how the choices I make have a real influence on how I feel, and also on my health as well. And that was a real sort of switch went on for me. I was like, gosh, there is so much power in terms of my health and what I can do to be healthy by the choices I make. So that really kind of started to deepen my interest in nutrition. And then when I became pregnant with my first child, that was the time where I sort of started to think, right, it's this time. I don't want to carry on being a lawyer for the rest of my life. I know there's something else out there for me. So that's when I started to think, really, what did I want to do? And I've always, like, as I said, I've always been interested in nutrition and into fitness. So wellness really, really kind of just spoke to me, and it felt like something that was really pulling me towards it. And I love helping people as well. Always, I love to help people. So that's when I decided to qualify to become a personal trainer. And I did that. And that took me a couple of years because I was trying to juggle small children and still working and studying. And then I made the decision to leave my law job and started work as a personal trainer. And I started out always worked for myself because that's what I wanted to do. And I worked with female clients. And I did that for 4 years. And it was partway through working as a personal trainer and working with these women who are all very busy women who've got a lot on their plate and who want to feel good. And I realized actually what they're really wanting is, of course, they want to be fit, and of course they want to be a healthy weight. But what so many of them were really struggling with was that sort of just that not having the energy they felt they needed to do all the things that they need to do. And it's hard, it's hard to juggle everything. And so that's when I kind of sort of, it dawned on me, I thought, gosh, actually there's something here, and it's bigger than just fitness. It incorporates, it's nutrition, it's your whole lifestyle really, and it's how you're looking after yourself. And so that's when this idea about kind of really focusing in on energy and helping people feel more energized. That's when that kind of that Energise with Emily. That's when I had that aha moment. And so so that's been something I've been kind of working on developing over the last couple of years. And then at the end of last year, I decided to close down my personal training side of my business. So I'm really focusing on the energy coaching now.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think something picking up on what you spoke about earlier about the way you look doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy. And you see so many people who look supposedly the perfect figure, but their diet and their lifestyle is so detrimental actually to their body.
Absolutely.
Both physically and mentally. It's not great. And I think it's really interesting, isn't it? And I think people are beginning to really understand is to be healthy, you're investing in the whole of you.
Absolutely.
Your physical and your mental, and how do you do that? And as you say, if you're getting that balance right, I think that's one of the first things that people say is the amount of energy that starts getting released, that you didn't realize you had all this energy before.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is the thing, if you may sort of see these picture perfect people with these unattainable bodies, and then as you say, if they're not actually nourishing themselves with a good, healthy, balanced diet, and they're not they're feeling this sort of intense pressure to look a certain way, I'm fairly confident that their energy levels would not be that great. And actually I can give you an example. I mean, a very real life example that I decided to do an experiment on myself. I saw about 3 years ago, there was something came up on Facebook, and it was a free get a bikini body in 90-day program. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to see what this is like. And so I followed this program. And it involved going to the gym 6 days a week. It was predominantly lifting really heavy weights and sort of doing this diet where you had to have days where you ate loads of protein and then other days where you ate very little protein. I have never felt more exhausted in my life. You know, honestly, it was just dreadful. And I thought, gosh, and people do this, you know, and they do this to themselves all the time. And it's, yeah, I mean, I bailed out after about 3 weeks.
But I think also things like that become counterproductive. It actually turns you off totally from a lot of the things, that the basic things that are the premise is
absolutely.
So when your patients come to you, or your customers, and the first thing they say, you know, do you ask them, you know, about their lives to start with, or where do you start when people say, I just feel knackered?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the first thing I do is just really try and understand, you know, understand as much as I can about them as a person, about their lifestyle, about what's going, you know, what they, you know, how they spend their days, what their demands on their energy are, really. I think that's a big one, is trying to understand, and that helps them actually understand, gosh, there are these things which are pulling on my energy, and which are, you know, really, these are the areas that I need to be kind of really mindful of, because if I don't watch out for them, they kind of, you know, suck me dry a little bit. And then I will normally, you know, we'll normally go through, you know, what their nutrition is like, and I will normally ask them to fill in a food diary over the course of a week, so I can see what's going on with them, with their nutrition. We talk about exercise and what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, what their attitude is, and it's really trying to understand kind of the, you know, what is it, you know, trying to work out what it is that's contributing to them feeling low in energy. And more often than not, it's a combination of factors. And sometimes there will be, you know, there may be a medical condition there, in which case, you know, if I suspect that there's something there, I'll, you know, tell them that, you know, recommend they go and see a doctor about it and go and get professional medical support and advice. But quite often, even if there is a medical condition, there are aspects of their lifestyle which, with some support and with some changes, can really help, you know, shift them towards feeling more energized. Yeah, so that's kind of where we start.
So I don't know if you can hear my cat, but she suddenly decided to join me, so she's just doing, I'm just going to get rid of her. I'm just going to get too interrupted with meowing, sorry.
No problem at all.
Right, sorry, very unprofessional, and I do apologise. Although I do feel that animals do give you good energy, because they have generally good energy as well, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So is there a, you know, I'm sure there are, so the sort of basics things, what's one of the first things that you might find in someone, and that you'd say, right, we'll look at this area?
You know, I think the first thing is, rather than actually looking at what we tweak, is we start to look at actually what do you really want to achieve, and what, you know the way you feel now, and you know that you don't want to carry on feeling that way. So let's have a think about, what is that vision? What is, you know, how do you want to really feel? Because I think unless people have a real sense of what they're working towards, rather than just, I need to fix what's wrong now because it just feels rubbish, but really getting them to connect with what the possibilities are. So that's something that I do with all of my clients, is getting them to work out what their vision is, and that's very much around how they want to feel. And you know, it's not, there's an element of, okay, you might want to look a certain way, but fundamentally it's around, how do you want to feel? And I call it your future energized self. And you can do it as a visualization where you see yourself being that energized person, and then once once they've kind of got that vision, then that kind of gives them the motivation, if you like, to start to make some of the more practical day-to-day changes. And it's hard to say, is that, you know, because everybody has different needs, and everybody has different areas of their life. I mean, I found that quite a few of my clients who come to me, actually their diets are pretty good, because they do care about their health, and so they are making healthy food choices. I do find that alcohol consumption is something that is quite often, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but it's very easy to kind of fall into, especially during lockdown. I know a lot of people have thought, oh well, it's Tuesday, we'll just have a glass of wine because it's Tuesday. And it's, and it's once I kind of get to know somebody, I can sort of see, well, okay, that during the week everything's going really well, but then at the weekend, it starts off with a bottle of wine being opened on Friday night, and then Saturday night, and then Sunday lunch, and over the course of a weekend, that's quite a lot of alcohol for your body to deal with. And if that's a regular weekly thing, and that's going to take a while, for your liver to kind of process all of that, and you're not going to wake up on Monday morning feeling great, are you?
No, and I think also alcohol has so many different effects on one's body. So first of all, your sleep is affected.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start messing around with your sleep, then other things start falling off the sort of. So it is, and then you then see you don't feel so good, and then lots of people have a lot of guilt issues around alcohol, don't they? And all of these things are continually sapping your positive energy towards trying to improve potentially your lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I really look at as well is is how much relaxation she's got in her life, because to me that gives me a real insight into how where self-care is on the priority list.
Yeah.
And she's saying, oh no, well, I'm lucky. Friday night I sit down and have a glass of wine. That's my relaxation for the week. That tells me a lot about just how much she's prioritizing her self-care. And so that's something that I think really, and once you can kind of, and it can be hard, you and I have talked about this, about how you can feel really guilty for doing nothing for 15 minutes when you're busy. It's incredibly hard. And and I think a lot of people just push on through because I think, I don't have time for this. But actually, if you do make the time, you'll come back to whatever you were doing feeling refreshed. You'll be much more productive and focused because you're giving yourself that break. And what a great gift to give yourself, 15 minutes of just taking a bit of a break in the day to do something relaxing and enjoyable.
I think it brings clarity as well, and clarity then brings the energy and the momentum to then push forward, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I just think sitting there, I remember from my days in the city, when people would just be there for hours and hours, and I'm just thinking, I couldn't be because I had children, but I'm just thinking, why are you spending hours and hours there? Because you're no more productive than anyone else.
No.
So it's a sort of a fallacy, isn't it, that I think is grown. But I think people are far better now than they ever were in understanding about self-care.
Yes.
It, brings better results.
Yes, absolutely. I think the understanding is there. I think sometimes the actual implementation and applying it to yourself consistently that's something I think people struggle with. And we we get busy, life gets pressured, and then those things, unless you're kind of making a conscious effort to make them part of your day and they become your habits and they become your routine, they can very easily just slip off your radar, and you find yourself back in that busy doing.
Yeah. So if looking at because I know there's a few cornerstones that diet, exercise, sleep and relaxation, which is what we've sort of touched on. If we sort of delve a bit deeper into each of one of those, so with diet, somebody who's got a relatively good diet, as you said, a lot of your clients come to you, they've got a relatively good diet on the outside, but they still need to energize. What would you suggest? Are there specific foods you return to?
Yeah, there are. I mean, I think I would I would, with the diet, I would always want to see all of the kind of what I call, a good, healthy, balanced diet with lots of variety. But the key, the key sort of micronutrients, so the vitamins and minerals that will help with energy, are iron and the B vitamins, magnesium, chromium, and coenzyme Q10, and vitamin C as well, because you need vitamin C to absorb the iron. Now there's for each of those vitamins and minerals, you can, there's lots of different foods which kind of will deliver those. But so long as you're getting sort of good, lots and lots of vegetables in your diet, especially dark leafy green vegetables, those are just amazing. You're getting some good oily fish, nuts, incredibly nutrient rich. Making sure that there's a bit of an anti-carb movement out there, but actually carbohydrates are really important for having good energy. We need carbohydrates. It's what our bodies run off, and particularly for mental energy as well. But the right kinds of carbohydrates, and things like grains and certain kinds of breads. There's plenty of B vitamins in those. You can find a lot of the foods that we buy now have vitamin enriched, so you can get your cereals with added vitamin D and things like that. So it would be really just checking that there is a source of all of those micronutrients in their diet. And of course, there's the option of taking supplements as well. But I always take the view that you start with your diet and then you add in the supplements if you need to.
Yes, and I think supplements are more supportive as opposed to the solid rock. Of everything. And you're right. People are a bit frightened of carbs because they've suddenly heard all the bad things, whereas carbs are positive for you. And particularly if you're doing a lot of exercise, you need to have carbs. And you can always spot the people that are on diets, low carb diets, because they're crabby. And I'm sure that if you're crabby and they feel short-tempered, once again, that doesn't help your energy levels at all, because it's all negative vibes coming through.
Yeah, sure.
So really difficult.
So those would be the main things I'd be looking for. And also with diet as well, is making sure that you're not leaving it too long between eating. And I know that for a lot of people, intermittent fasting works for them, and I don't think we want to go into an in-depth conversation about that here, but just during the day, if you find your energy levels dipping and dropping, and you find yourself feeling ghastly at 4 o'clock, because you just want to curl up on the sofa, you actually think, well, actually, have I eaten anything since lunchtime? And perhaps that's your body signaling to you, hey, time for a snack. I need something just to lift your blood sugars up.
Intermittent fasting is fine as long as you're eating enough at the times at which you're meant to be. It's like doing everything properly, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
And another thing is that you mentioned about, do you feel hungry? And it never crossed my mind, but I heard it a little while ago, and it made me really think, is that when you're looking for something to eat, it could be you're just thirsty, because most of us are generally dehydrated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got my little prop here of my water bottle, and I was just going to say, with diet as well as making sure you're drinking plenty of water. And
I've got mine here. Mine looks like a gin and tonic though. It's not.
Yeah, and just making sure you're hydrated throughout the day. And you're right, it's quite often a mistake. We mistake thirst for hunger, and sometimes actually, if you just go and have a glass of water, that can be all you need, really, just to lift you out of that feeling, whatever it is.
So it's looking at the basic food stuff, the stuff that we know, but I think the trouble is we all know this, and there's a lot of information about, but it doesn't hurt to keep being reminded of the food that we should be taking, and understanding how we fit that into our daily lifestyle or our daily menus, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think as a kind of a rule of thumb, if you can, and you don't, we're not talking about being perfect all the time, because let's face it, life is there. We want to enjoy our lives, and going out for a nice meal and having a big plate of pasta sometimes is absolutely what you want to do. But as if you can try on each day for your lunch and your dinner, if you can try and have half of your plate as vegetables, I think that's a really good start. And it doesn't matter, they can be frozen, they don't have to be, they don't have to be fresh. Frozen vegetables cooked as, they're a great source of nutrients too. So it doesn't have to be complicated.
No. Yes, you don't have to be the Gordon Ramsay or whoever it might be to eat healthily at all.
No, you don't. No.
So one of the things that we put is tips for steering clear of exhaustion, and I thought, oh, that's really interesting. So, because a lot of us don't know we've necessarily exhausted until we've got to the point where there's nothing left.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that with so I think obviously making sure you're getting enough sleep. Sleep is just so important, and it's really hard, and I think it's almost impossible to have good energy if you're not sleeping well. You can stuff yourself full of green smoothies and meditate till the cows come home, but if you're not getting enough sleep, it's really hard to have to feel energized and to feel that really kind of positive, buzzy sort of energy that we want to have. So just making sure that you're getting enough sleep. I think also recognizing when your body is really good at giving you signs when you're starting to go, when you're starting to feel tired. And I think a lot of us perhaps aren't as attuned to those signs, or we ignore them. So I think it's learning to recognize and knowing, well, what is a sign for me that I'm starting to get, I may be starting to, go into that exhaustion. Perhaps you might be feeling a bit more emotional than usual. You might be feeling a bit grumpy, a bit more tearful. You'll have the signs. I know for me, it's when I start to make lists endlessly for almost no purpose. It's like, right, okay, something's going on here. I'm making too many lists.
Yeah.
And I get a twitch in my eye.
Yeah, a twitch is meant to be, that's definitely a very good sign, isn't it? And it's quite a common sign, I think, for people. And I think for a lot of our members who do have quite a lot of chronic health conditions, it's absolutely vital for them to recognise their own signs in order to not go down that path of complete exhaustion, because to come back up is a lot of effort.
It is, yeah, it is. And also when you are exhausted as well, that's when you're more susceptible to falling, to picking up illness as well. Sometimes it's a sign that if you're exhausted, your body's it's going to find it harder to sort of fight off the things that are going around. I know from my own experience, my husband's experience of when we were tired and run down, that would be the time that we end up getting this stinking cold and being laid up in bed for 3 weeks. So it's so I think making sure you're getting enough sleep, looking out for your the cues and the signs in your behaviors, or your body as well, and what are your the signals, and taking notice of them as well, really being aware of them, and then pausing and thinking, okay, I can see that I'm going down the route of feeling exhausted. What do I need to do now? And if it's the case that you've got a lot on, and you just feel like, oh, I'm being pulled in many directions, maybe thinking about, right, is it now the time I need to just draw some boundaries around my time, and I need to say, okay, I don't want to go down, I don't want to end up being ill for 3 weeks or feeling exhausted and run down. And it's time to just to draw some boundaries and to maybe start saying no to a few things. People understand.
I think they do, but people do understand, but I think it's important that you understand yourself that it is possible to say no. That's the biggest barrier is yourself to pulling together a boundary, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah,
no, really tricky.
And then if you would, just to sort of finish off that about what what you can do to avoid sort of tipping into that exhaustion, is if you've just got some simple little daily things that you can do that are perhaps in addition to what you would normally do, is your kind of preventative, and perhaps it might be just adding a few more, goodies into your diet, just really just going that next step up. Perhaps it's adding a little bit more relaxation into your day. It might be, just switching up your exercise, doing something a little bit different. It might be taking the intensity off your exercise regime, because if your body is exhausted and you go out and punish yourself with a 10K run or something like that, that's probably not what your body needs. So dialing down
listen to your body,
and
listen to your mind, isn't it? And that's the trick with a lot of health things. And then the last point is maintaining healthy energy habits. Now, we all start off with great ideas, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, how often we're going to do something, but how do we stick to them?
That's where the test is, isn't it? Because we all kind of, as you say, we've got plenty of ideas about things we could do and the things, how we could change our lives, but you sort of get to 3 weeks in or a month in, and then suddenly it's like, oh, I can't be bothered with this, it's got really hard. And I think that it's what I sort of said at the start when I was talking about when I'm working with my clients, and what I try to get them to do is to have that vision of what they're actually working towards. And I think when you've got that vision of what your future energized self looks like, that version of you that's achieved all the goals or is achieving all your goals, when it gets tough, then that can kind of step in for it can give you the motivation, I think, when things feel a little bit hard. I think you can also, if what habits and working towards achieving your goals, this is really about trying to build habits. And once you build a habit, it becomes, you almost go on autopilot, right? A habit is just something you do. We have good habits and bad habits, and the things we just do, and it feels weird if we don't do them. So it's like really trying to build those habits. And the way you start building a habit is you start off with something that feels like it's something that you want to do and your change you want to make. You've got a particular action, right? So it's a thing you've got to do. So maybe it's going for a walk every day for 20 minutes. And it's got to feel like it's something that you can manage, and it's not going to be, really impossible and feel like it's just too hard for you. So start off with those small things, and then really making that conscious effort to build that consistency. So really just trying to get that repetition in there. And if going for a walk for 20 minutes, Monday to Friday, feels like actually I'm not there yet, then just take it back and go Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So just really trying to build that consistency. Having some form of accountability as well is really important. So whether that's being, having someone, your partner, kind of come on, you need to go out for your walk, or come on, let's make a salad for dinner tonight. Having someone to be accountable to is really an important part of habit formation. And that's why I think a lot of, there's a lot of success with these, you get sort of like the big kind of fitness communities, and there are other sort of like diet communities as well. And I think that's how they are, people, they get that accountability from being part of a group, and they can all spur each other on. So that's another way you can find accountability. Or else, if you might be really good at holding yourself to account and just say, right, I'm going to write down at the end of every day, I'm going to write down that I have done 1, 2, 3 today, and I'm good at that.
So actually moving on, we had some of the questions that people have posted. Somebody said, what tips can you give to encourage energizing whilst isolating and living alone for those over 70?
Yes, that's a good question. If you are confined to indoors, so we'll talk about if you're not really able to go outside. I think it's important to try and get as much fresh air as you can. So if you can open your windows, and perhaps in the morning when you get up, open your windows, open your curtains, and try and get as much, you want to get as much sunlight into your, exposure to sunlight as possible. Obviously not staring into the sun, but just trying to, once your brain, registers that it's daylight, and exposure to light will do that, that will help you feel more awake. I think just keeping as active as you can during the day. So just walking around, if you're sitting, if you are sitting in a chair or you're confined to a chair, just finding ways to move. The fidget factor is, to fidget a little bit, and move your hands around, roll your shoulders, and you can find exercises that you can do with your feet and moving. So trying to keep as mobile as possible. I think trying to, you talked about animals being very energizing as well. Thinking about how you can make your space and where you are, how you can make your physical environment energize you. And it doesn't have to involve completely redecorating your house, but just, I've got a vase of daffodils on my kitchen table, and every time I walk past them, they just give me a lift. And just a few little touches like that, and just changes to your physical environment can be very energizing. And from sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and I do think so. Some of the things that you're saying, people would say, "Oh, well, that's sort of obvious," or "That's just kind of only little." Does that make a difference? And I think all of those things that you've mentioned is like, getting up from when, sitting down if you sat down for too long, opening the window, having, I always have daffodils when they're in, when it's time, and I've got them in my kitchen as well. And they are little things, but you put them together, they're all very powerful.
They are, absolutely. They are small but significant things, and they can make such a difference. And I think also really trying to work on think about your mindset and how you want to feel, and starting your day, and when you wake up in the morning, and just even if, I don't know if I do affirmations, and I find them really useful to me. Even starting to say, today is a good day, I'm going to feel good today. And you can stand in front of the mirror and just say that out loud, and just that your mood will follow your thoughts. And so if you can really try to fill your mind with positive thoughts, that will help your mood and help you.
I think that is it. It is trying to be positive does make a difference, and also the more you try and it becomes a habit, the easier it becomes. And we've got another one. I drink 2 litres a day. Is that enough? I'm petite, 4'11", and I go to the loo lots.
Yeah. Yes, I think 2 litres of water. I assume it's 2 litres of water.
Any tips to help my bladder? I'm a guilty herbal tea drinker. I'm kind of not sure that you would necessarily be able to answer about helping her bladder, but I think what she's sort of saying is that, taking in a lot of fluid, or, keeping your fluid contents up is really important to keep. It helps with your energy levels.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the downside of drinking a lot of water, is you do end up needing the loo a lot. But yeah, drinking 2 litres of water, and it varies from person to person as well. As that, I think that some people it might be 1.5 litres is enough for them. If you're really active and it's a hot, the weather's hot, it might be more. But 2 litres of water a day, and if you with herbal teas as well, I'd say that that's a good amount of water to be drinking. So well done.
I've got 2 last questions. And these were sent to us previously. How do I find time in my day to do energy things?
Yeah, well, that is therein lies the challenge, and I think that's for the women I work with. I think that's the biggest challenge for them, is finding the time in their day. And I think there is a perception that all of this takes a long time, but as we've said, a lot of these things they're small They're small things, small but significant things, and they don't have to take a lot of time. And I think if you can sit down with your diary, and first of all, you need to treat these things, whether it's, exercise, or if it's meal prep, or perhaps it's making, we're all working from home at the moment, it's making yourself a healthy lunch. You treat that like something on your to-do list, and treat it as for some things, treat it as an appointment. If you are going out for a walk, or you are, you're doing an online fitness class or a yoga session or something like that, and you're working, and you just block the time out in your diary and treat it like an appointment, and treat it as just as important as that work call that you've got. And then I think also just look at, find 15-minute windows of time in your day. So I think, people struggle to find an hour. I understand that. But most of us can find 15 minutes somewhere to relax. We can find 15 minutes somewhere to get some exercise. We can find 15 minutes to do a little bit of, to make ourselves a healthy lunch. It doesn't take long chopping up a few vegetables for a salad. So it's just trying to find those chunks of time, and having a plan B as well. I think that is really important for people who struggle with finding time, is that they feel like, things have got really busy, so therefore I can't do any of it, and so everything goes out the window. But having a plan B, so it might be that perhaps you can't make it to the hour-long yoga class that you normally go to, but you go online and you can find a 15-minute yoga session on YouTube, and just realizing that actually in all cases something is always better than nothing. And so even if it's just a little thing, and it's the same with if you dinner, so you've had a really busy week, you think, oh gosh, but it's like, well, actually just have a side salad with the ready meal that you've picked up, just something. Don't, it's not all or nothing. It's, just doing those little things.
Absolutely. And last question, which is, what's the best exercise?
Well, it very much depends on what your where you're at in your life, and kind of what your physical kind of abilities are, and what applies for a 30-year-old is obviously going to be quite different for a 70-year-old. But I think in terms of what gives you energy, I think something ideally outdoors. Just being outside is incredibly energizing. Something, an activity that you enjoy is going to be a lot more energizing than something you don't enjoy. So if you hate running, then maybe running's not the thing that's going to bring you the most energy, but perhaps you really like cycling, or you like swimming. It's also finding that balance of doing exercise that challenges you, and if it helps improve your fitness, your cardiovascular fitness, and your strength, but doesn't leave you feeling completely exhausted. And that can vary from person to person, and it can also vary from day to day. When I was working as a personal trainer, I would have clients come to me who, one week they'd be, yeah, I'm really up for it today. And then the following week, they're like, I've had a terrible night. My kids have been up all night. I'm exhausted. And I've got loads of work stress on. So we would just do still a good session, but a gentler session. There's no point in completely, compounding the exhaustion by making somebody do too much. So it's kind of just finding that right balance. And as we said, your body, listen to your body. Your body will tell you what you need.
Well, that's really fascinating, thank you. And I think it's I feel energized to go and do something. I want to go and open the windows, but it's not quite so nice out here than when we started talking. But yeah, I think that for me the key thing is to do something, and it doesn't have to be massive. It's just those small little things that you've mentioned that can really build up and actually make the difference to how you feel, your energy levels throughout the whole day.
Yeah. And then when you are feeling in that really positive energy, and it actually then you'll find you're more motivated to actually to make more changes.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I can do this, I'm feeling good, you know. And it just does, it does really, it's sort of just starting small, and then just seeing where it goes, and
building on it, and recognizing that, gosh, I do take a step back and recognize how you have moved forward. I think is really important as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's important not to sort of discount how they are small changes, but they are significant, and they, if when you're doing them, it's amazing. And really celebrate the fact that you are doing these things and doing them consistently. And just because they're small doesn't mean they're not important, and they're not going to have a really big benefit for you and your energy levels.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Emily, for having a chat with us. And I think we've got some videos up on our website as well for people to have a look at. So please do go and have a look there. And thank you so much. And thank you for everybody attending and your questions. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye.